Welcome to Bite Sized, Insights from New York State PTA, the podcast where the heart of PTA leadership gets a mic.
From the hilarious meeting moments to the heartwarming wins. And yes, even a few oopsies. We're bringing you the unfiltered truth of PTA life.
Whether you're brand new to your role or a seasoned pro, this is your space, your bite-sized dose of insights, inspiration, and connection.
This is Bite Size, Insights from New York State PTA.
Because every story counts, even the ones that could have been an email. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Bite Sized Insights from New York State PTA. Today's episode is a really special one. We have the honor of being joined by someone whose leadership has touched families and communities across the country. Yvonne Johnson has served as the National PTA President, leading with heart, purpose, and a deep commitment to every child and every family. Her work has not only shaped conversations at the national level, but has made a real difference in lives of students, parents, and leaders everywhere. Yvonne, we're so grateful to have you today. How are you doing? Tell us about
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to do this. I'm Yvonne Johnson, and I am the 58th National PTA President, and I'm honored to be here with New York, which is where I live in Delaware, but I am a New Yorker at heart. I was born and raised in New York. I went to college in New York, and then I moved to Delaware. So I am always going to be in New York.
Hey, very nice. So, Yvonne, I want to introduce you to our co-hosts. We have Robin Brumfield, we have Kathleen McEnroe, and we have Sonia Varillo, whose voice is meant for podcasting. I have to tell you, smooth as butter, as we say, right? So, Yvonne, tell us about who you were before PTA. What first pulled you into this work?
So I've always been, even when I was growing up, someone who liked to be the chair of this. I was in student council. I was always like the joiner, a lot of times the leader. I grew up in New York, like I said, and I'm Jewish, and I'm used to there being a synagogue on every street corner. So I moved to Delaware. My husband is not Jewish, and I observed. And my now 40-year-old son, he was in first grade, and I kept him home for the Jewish holidays, and he comes home with an unexcused absence. And I'm like, what is this? So I call the school, and they say, well, we don't honor those things. So I was like, well, I'll be right over. So I went over to the school, talked to the school secretary, which they know everything. And I said, I've never heard of such a thing. I grew up in a place where we had the day off. At least it should be an excused absence. And she said, if you want to make change, get involved in the PTA. So I joined the PTA. I started to get involved in all these different issues, and I learned how to use my voice. Just fast forward, not only did it become an excused absence, but it also is now a day off in school throughout the state. So I really learned from that experience how to use my voice, how to work with coalition partners that have similar advocacy efforts. Sometimes you have to compromise. At the end, you get what you want, and that's really important. And so when I discovered that my voice counted, I wanted to make sure that other parents use their voice. I actually have something that I live by, and never underestimate the power of a parent's voice, because our voices count. And if we're not sitting at the table with those decision makers, then the decisions are made for us instead of what's best for everyone. So I'm a big believer in having a seat at the table. So that was my start in PTA, and then just, was a local leader. And then I joined the state PTA. I actually first, when I was doing my advocacy, I didn't even know there was a state PTA. A friend, someone who I'm still friends with, she said, the state PTA can help you. I'm like, the state PTA? I didn't know there was a state PTA. So, of course, then I went to one of their meetings, and I got to know them, and they asked me to join their board. And from a teeny state like Delaware, it's very easy to move up because there's not a capacity like there is in larger states like New York. I was very honored to be able to be on their board, and I did a lot of things, but mostly it was around advocacy. I was a regional vice president, and then I became the president-elect. But I went to my first national PTA convention in 2009 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And when I went to that national convention, everything changed for me. I was like, I want to be involved in this. I loved the bylaws and the resolutions and all the business and the elections. And I just was very taken in. There were thousands of people there, and you met so many people. I think we actually had about 11 people from Delaware there, which is a big number for us. And it was a great experience. And I've been to every national PTA convention since. And I think going to national convention really opens your eyes to what can be, especially when you're from a smaller state. So once I went to that, I became a state president, and then I did the route that not everyone takes, but I took the route where you were a state PTA president, then you joined a national PTA committee, then you ran for the board, then you ran for an officer position. I never in a million years thought that I would be the national PTA president. And by the way, I'm the first national PTA president to serve 3 years. The bylaws changed when I became president-elect. When I was running for president-elect and I won, it was virtual. And there was like one of those revision bylaws where everything up, everything down, and it was virtual. And I remember being in a restaurant that night with my family. We went out to celebrate that I had won. And a principal at a local elementary school had seen on Facebook that I had won. And so she had champagne brought over to the table. And we're sitting there and we're making a toast. And she came over with her husband. And she's like, to the next 5 years. And my husband's like, wait a minute. I thought it was 4 years because, of course, we did not expect that bylaw to pass. But it did. And so here we are. And so that's really my journey. And everyone takes a different journey. Like I said, some people don't do the state, or they might go right to the state, or they might go right to national. I think it depends upon where your passion is. What I loved about my journey was that I got to learn all the roles, and I got to I feel like I was a developed leader. I had great leadership development. I had great mentors and people that, really showed me the way, gave me a path. And I think that really helped me in my leadership skills.
I think your journey is almost similar to Sonia's, because Sonia came and she didn't do state. She did national. Am I correct, Sonia? Is that how you came about your leadership journey?
Well, I went to a national convention before I went to a state convention. So,
wow.
So I was president of my elementary unit, and my firstborn son was in first grade, and I didn't know anything. And it was in Columbus, Ohio, and it was when Otha Thornton got installed as president.
Love that convention.
So that was my first, and I think Roger Goodell was there talking about concussions, something from the NFL, concussion protocols and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so I went, that was the very first PTA training that I went to, was after my first year as president, was straight to national convention.
That's where I got elected VP of Advocacy. I remember we used to not have VP of Advocacy or VP of Membership. Mm-hmm. We just had Secretary Treasurer, President-elect, and President. And when we adopted in the bylaws the VP of Advocacy and VP of Membership, I remember saying to a colleague, one day I hope I can be VP of Advocacy. And it was like my dream. President was not even in the cards, but sometimes opportunities fall in your lap and you get to experience things, and it makes you see that you can do things that you might not think you can do them. And that's what happened to me. Mm-hmm. But I think it's great that your first convention was a national one, because it must have hooked you in. It's hard to go to a national convention. And by the way, our national convention is coming up very quickly. It's the first in-person one while I'm president. We've had all virtual ones since our 125th. Mm-hmm. And those that are listening, I'm not sure if you know this, but we're 129 years old. Many people have no idea how long PTA has been around. The PTA journey started with our founders through their advocacy voices. That is how we were founded. So that's why we're the largest and oldest child advocacy association in the country. I'm excited for our convention. It is June 17th to the 19th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you can get all the information that you need on, just go to pta.org/convention and you'll see everything. So we're very excited. We're excited about our guest speakers. Al Roker is going to be there. So that's pretty exciting. And all of the amazing workshops. We're trying some new things this year, different ways of giving workshops. We're having some traditional, but there's like different pathways and different ways that we want our members to learn from. So I'm super excited about it.
Well, since we're talking about national convention, what is something somebody who's never been could gain from going to a national convention?
Yeah, great question, Kathleen. So I think the biggest takeaway you get from a convention, especially as a first timer, is the business part of it. It's seeing how resolutions work. Resolutions are super important for an advocacy association because it is our official position. And we have position statements, but a resolution holds so much more weight because it's adopted by our members, by our delegates, rather than just adopted by the board. And it's the way that you have an official position, then you can then go back to your states and advocate on those issues. I remember during our first virtual convention, the first one where I was president in 2000, it was 23 and no, 24. We did an amendment to a resolution on gun violence. It was on safe storage. We had a resolution on safe storage, but it didn't have an accountability piece. And if you remember, it's a couple of incidents in Michigan where parents were held accountable because they did not store their firearms safely. And I was so proud of us that we were able to pass that for the accountability piece, because as an association, that's a huge part of our public policy priorities is our gun violence prevention initiatives. And obviously, we know it's an epidemic in our country. And you learn so much from hearing what people say about resolutions at convention, how you debate. You learn about Robert's rules and bylaw amendments. Those are two other things. And then there's the elections. And it's just a great way to learn how to really be a PTA member in the true sense. Another thing is the building and the connections with people. I'm still friends with the people I met at that very first convention in 2009. You make connections with people from all over the country. You get ideas from them. Everybody does some things a little bit differently, and you just get to bring those ideas back to your own local units or your regions or your states, and you get to use those things, because one thing about PTA is idea sharing makes it work. It's such an important
Definitely
thing.
does.
And that's why in person is so important, because we're about relationships. That's what PTA is about. We're about building relationships and what you do with those relationships. So those are some of the things that you would get as a first timer.
I was going to ask Yvonne, there's always a moment you shared with us about just making sure that the holidays and all cultural holidays were acknowledged. And that's where your leadership basically in PTA stopped. But at what point, where did it stop being about that and something that PTA just became a part of who you are?
So that's a great question, Robin. And I'm not sure. PTA brought me, a lot of people get involved in PTA because they want to be involved in their kids' schools. This is usually why they join the PTA. They want to be there for their kids. They want to support the school, raise money to make sure that the school has what it needs, building relationships with your school, the teachers and the building administration and that kind of thing. And so that's my journey. I found PTA because I needed to learn about advocacy. So I've always been an advocate. I feel like I'm a professional advocate now. I remember the first time I went to testify at our House Education Committee. Unfortunately, we just lost a dear principal that all of us started our PTA life together. And so it was like a reunion, unfortunately, at a funeral. And we were talking about that very first time that we went to the House Education Committee meeting down at our Capitol to talk about why high stakes testing was not what we wanted. Like, we really were fighting high stakes testing and what the unintended consequences were of using a single indicator for a child's academic career. And we prepared for months. We rehearsed. We did. I'm sure you've all been through that too. We had everything. And now I don't even prepare. I walk in and I just speak from my heart because I've been doing it for so long. So I've always been an advocate, but I think something changed where it became more than just advocacy. It became leadership. It became about developing leaders. That's a huge thing for a leader to see and know. As a president, especially, I feel it is my role to make sure that the people that, like all our state presidents, get professional development, that they can learn about the role. I also think we don't look at this all the time, but our board is a governing body. It's not a managing body. That's for the staff to handle. So there's very clear roles when you are at the national level, and you are a large state. So you have staff too. But in Delaware, we used to have staff. We don't even have staff anymore. So that was a big learning curve for me, learning even how to run a meeting appropriately. I never had a parliamentarian. I used to have a volunteer be the parliamentarian for our convention. But now I understand Robert's rules and how that works, and how you, when you're in a meeting and you're chairing the meeting, you cannot debate. You have to remain you have to be unbiased so that the people in the room make the decisions. And that's a very big leap for especially a person like me that likes to have her opinion shared. So it went from being an advocate to being a leader. And I think, yes, you can be both, but I think for me at least, that was my big PTA leap, going into the leadership part of it. And I feel like it's prepared me to do other things as well. So it's been great for me. And I've had a great term, a lot of big decisions that we had to make during my term. Like I said, we had to get a dues increase passed, and there was a lot of opposition the year before. So I had to earn people's trust. And I am good at that because I am, and anyone will tell you this, I am very responsive. My president-elect calls me freakishly responsive because when someone sends me an email, I usually respond immediately, or a text or a phone call. Like I would forget to respond if I didn't do it immediately. Sometimes it's not so good because you really should think before you respond sometimes, right? Especially if it's a contentious situation. Our ED retired, so we had to hire an ED, and that's a huge thing, especially for a national organization. So putting a committee together and hiring a firm to do it and all that, and then the decision to sell the headquarters. So these were 3 major decisions that came under my term. And I'm proud of the work that we've done, but I also see there's lots of ways that we can still grow, and Bill will carry that out when he becomes president.
I like the governing and not managing. I really like that. I wrote it down.
It's so important for us to know that as a board, we do not manage. That's up to staff to do, that we are a governing body.
For sure. Agreed. So looking back on your time as National PTA President, what's one moment you'll carry with you for the rest of your life?
So this is sort of like a personal thing, but when I was installed, we all went to the office. So when I say we all, I invited some friends. I had a superintendent that taught me so much about advocacy. He was part of that original, group of people that fought against the state testing. So I've stayed in touch with him over many, many years. And he and his wife came to Virginia to headquarters so he could install me. And of course, my family was there, and my friends and colleagues. And it was when my daughter presented me the famous jean jacket. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? She made me a jean jacket. She hand painted it. She had been home. She's an immigration attorney, and she lives in Boston, and she had come home for a Taylor Swift concert, and she had this amazing jean jacket, and it was all of hand painted Taylor Swift's, all the album covers. I'm like, wow, I would love something like this. And so she surprised me and made me this jean jacket, which is unbelievable. It has she painted the headquarters and every single thing she could think of, our family engagement standards, you name it. It's on that jacket. And it's a famous jacket because it says National PTA President. I'll only be able to wear it for 3 more months. So if I'm in the airport and I'm wearing it, people will say, are you the National PTA President? Anyway, it was very touching. But she made a speech. I didn't realize, sometimes you don't realize the effects you have on your children. She was saying how, my mom was always there. She was at everything, always involved when I was in elementary, involved when I was in middle, involved when I was in high school, stayed involved even after I graduated, went to college. I had to sign a contract that I wouldn't start a PTA at the University of Delaware because she was worried that I'd be there all the time, but I was very behaved. But she talked about how she admired she always advocated for me and my brother, but she also always advocated for every kid. And when your kid says that about you, even though people say it, it's a profound thing to hear when your own child sees what you do. And by the way, both my kids are advocates. I mean, my daughter's an immigration attorney, so that should speak for itself. And my son advocates too. So I feel like I've set up a precedent with them and set the example that you have to speak up for people, even because sometimes they can't speak up for themselves. And she made this speech, which was really lovely. I still have it on video, and I'll always, always, always remember it. It's one of the most memorable moments that in my whole PTA career is when you hear from your kids what you've done. So that's my thing.
Great story. And
So what happens with the jean jacket now? Are you going to frame it?
Well, it's so funny because where was I? I was somewhere. Oh, we were in Florida, and I was talking to my great niece about it, and she's like, "Well, you could still wear it." I said, "No, I won't be the National PTA president." She's like, "Yeah, but I think you maybe put past on there." I'm like, "Well, Jessica would have to do that as my daughter, but I'll always have it, of course."
It's a cool jacket.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I love it. I mean, when I first wore it, I went to Texas. That was my first convention that I went to after I got elected, and I wore the jacket. Literally, people didn't want pictures of me. They wanted pictures on my back. It's a great conversation piece.
Well done. Well done.
So I'm just going to say leadership development is so important. And I have I've been able to attend, I think, almost all of the professional development institutes that you've had during your term have always been great training, and especially in roles for like local PTA leaders where they're churning over every year, every 2 years, having those standards and having that professional development and giving people the training to do the job that they need to do is so important, because otherwise people just have no clue on how to do it. As you know, in New York State, we've introduced this financial accountability training, and I just gave one on this past Sunday night, and so many people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you had this training," because either they were doing it or they weren't doing it. They were like, "I still appreciate the information." You know what I mean? Just to knowing how to protect their money and how to be good stewards of it.
Yeah. So the PDI is a really, I don't know if Bill will continue it. I know that for me, professional development for our leaders, not just our state presidents, but for everyone, was incredibly important. We actually had this past summer, we had 44 new state presidents. So we had a PTA boot camp. As a matter of fact, I put her in charge of it, Dana Playton. And so we had the folks from the Field Service Committee come, and they did for all the state presidents, but there was obviously 44 out of 50 new ones. So it was very helpful for them. So they understood not just what their roles are so much, but what is your obligation to National PTA, your standards of affiliation, those kinds of things. But then also a lot about boardsmanship. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a workshop on boardsmanship at convention this year, and it's going to be a lot about, like what I said, that we have to understand our role as a governing body and not a managing body. And I think that that's something that our PTA leaders, maybe they think that, especially if you're the president, sometimes we think that we're supposed to do everything. Delegation is so important. So the PDI has been great because it's been for all state leaders in the state. It's been open to every state leader. So I've been really happy with the topics. We've tried to mix it up and have different presenters. So I'm glad to hear that you've enjoyed them, because that was an important thing. Training. That's one good thing about virtual, is that we're able to provide more of that stuff for people all over the country. Because if we were in person, how often could we do it? We wouldn't be able to do it. So I did try to do it quarterly. So I'm glad to hear that you got a lot out of it.
Yeah. And for those people that are listening to this podcast, local leaders, National PTA has the Thrive platform, which is a learning management system where you can take training 24/7, 365. I'm not sure how many courses there are, but there are a ton of different courses.
Yeah. There's over 100.
There's over 100. So yeah.
And there's all subjects. Yeah.
So
Advocacy,
if a local leader just gets, is elected in May, June, what course would you send them to on Thrive?
1000%. There is what is PTA? People need to understand what PTA is. In that course, they talk about what hat you're wearing, because it's important that people understand what hats they're wearing, especially because many of us serve in multiple places. You might be on a state board. You might also be in a local leader. You might be a region leader. You might be on the National PTA board. Like, there's all different roles that we fill. And so you have to know what hat you're wearing. So, and then why PTA? What is our association about? The founding grassroots advocacy, why we were founded and what our values are. Of course, as you know, if any of you have ever been in a meeting with me, I start every single meeting with our mission statement and then our values, because then you're setting the tone for what's coming. You're setting the tone for the rest of the meeting or the training that it's always back to the mission, because when we are doing our work, regardless of what it is, even if it's finances, membership, it's about our mission to make sure that every child's potential becomes a reality by engaging, empowering families and communities. And so that's why I do that. And I have all my committee chairs start their meetings that way also. I'm really serious about it. We start our board meetings that way. And we also have board norms at the national level. And we read those at every board meeting as well, just because it keeps you grounded. Because again, as the chair, I can't debate. I just run the meeting. It's up to everyone in the room to use their voice to make a motion or whatever. The Thrive courses also, there's standards of affiliation, and many local units call it compliance, call different things. But it's important for PTAs to know about those things, because that is your 501c3 status, and you're legally obligated to follow those things. So those would be two courses that I would start with Thrive. But I love the advocacy courses. There's great membership courses. I mean, we have a lot of great information, and anyone, all you have to do, it's free. All you have to do is sign up with a personal email. They won't let you use your PTA email. Also, our website is getting revamped. It's being worked on right now. We're making it more user-friendly. It won't happen while I'm president, but it's in the process. And it's going to be really great and easier for locals, regions, councils, state to be able to access information on our website.
That's great.
That's good to hear. So, Yvonne, as the National PTA President, people see the title and they see the events that you put on and the impact. But what is something about your leadership at that level that people don't see? And what really matters most to you?
What do people don't see? Because when you started asking the question, I'm thinking, what do people do see? Is that I am really authentic. I'm very real. I love to have fun with people, but I also know when to be serious. I treat everyone equally. Even if you're my friend, I don't say, oh, you can do this because you're my friend kind of thing. I think that's a really important thing to do when you're the president. You have to make sure you got to set the tone at the beginning that this is what you expect. And sometimes you have expectations. Like one thing, I will be honest, that drives me crazy in a meeting is when people have their cameras off. I've always felt like I feel like I'm talking to myself if the people don't have their cameras on. Sometimes my board members don't, and I don't like it. And I tell them, I say, can you put your camera on? For whatever reason, I'm not feeling well, or I won't get any internet. You can have expectations of people, but I think that you also have to know when to compromise. And I think that is part of leadership, knowing when to compromise. I think one thing that people don't really know about me is that I can be really sensitive. I don't cry. I used to be a crier when I was younger. Oh my God, I would cry at the tip of a hat. Something happened, I'm not sure when, where I got much more thick skin. I'm sensitive that way. I don't think people would describe me as sensitive. So I think that would be something that people don't really know about me. People describe me as the Energizer Bunny because I do 5 million things a day and I also walk a minimum of 15,000 steps a day. And, I really try to get it all in. And so I was just at something and they're like, I want to have half your energy, but I crash at like 8:00. It's getting to that witching hour. And I actually have another meeting after this. When you have the whole country, you have to be sensitive to other people's time zones. And so that's a big adjustment. I would love no meetings to be past 7, but that's not realistic. So that's one thing I will not miss is meetings at 8:00 at night.
I'm glad we
So
all
hopefully that answered your question.
I'm glad it became before the other meeting.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
I had forgotten about the other meeting. I got a reminder yesterday. I'm like, well, I guess I'll be doing something after the podcast.
She would have been yawning at the podcast.
Never. I like the 15,000 steps though. I
know. I have to increase mine. I only have 12,000.
Well, I found this new thing on YouTube called Walk at Home. It's the most incredible thing. If you have not done it, there's 4 or 5 instructors. It's exercise, but it's a little bit of kickboxing, but it's walking. There's like 4 main steps. It's so easy to follow because I'm not coordinated, and it counts the steps for you. So there's ones that are 5 and 4,000 steps, and then of course I walk outside. That's how I get my steps in. It's called
8,000.
Walk at Home. It is the greatest thing. I even ordered the bands that you use for the arms. I couldn't find them. I was looking everywhere, and then I finally went, oh, let me just go online and Walk at Home, and it came right up, and I got it on Amazon.
That's part of the convention pack. We did we did this episode where we talked about things that you absolutely need to make sure you have with you, and you can't always work out. Sometimes a little something, a little stretch that made it to the.
I actually wrote to these people. I was watching one of the classes, I was taking the class, and they said they were from Pittsburgh. So I sent them an email and I said, I'm the National PTA President. We're having our convention there. I'd love one of these 5 instructors to come and lead an exercise thing. They never responded, but I intend to email them again. But it would be so great because we do like to have a stretch time at general session, and it would be amazing. Every instructor is so fantastic. There's one that I really love. I don't know if she would be available, but yeah, I'm not shy to ask things. I write to Oprah all the time.
If you're out there, walk from home.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I'm going to ask you a question that I think has impacted every leader at one point in their presidency. Was there ever a moment during your presidencies, either national or as a unit or, any level, where you quietly questioned if you could keep going? And if you did, what got you through it?
So I would say that during my presidency, I never questioned it before, but as the National PTA President, I don't know if I questioned that I couldn't do it, but I felt very overwhelmed. And I think it was actually when I first became president, I think every president tries to transition their president-elect. So I had Anna, and she transitioned me, and I transitioned Bill, but you're never really prepared for what you have. It doesn't matter how much transition you get. Because first of all, everybody is a different leader, so you have things your certain way. But we have to provide, well, at least this is what I was told by our executive director at the time, not Howie, before Howie, that I had to do charges for all my committees. I didn't even know what that meant. And I was already president. He gave me some guidance. Anyway, I remember visiting my daughter in Boston. We went to see a Bruce Springsteen concert. They gave the Massachusetts PTA free tickets to Bruce Springsteen.
Wow.
So I went to Boston. I went with all of them, and my daughter came too. It was great. And I drove there. It was a horrible trip. It took 9 hours to get there. It was terrible traffic. It was during the summer. Every free minute I had, I'm working on these charges, and it had to be a certain way with a certain color. And my daughter's like, Mom, this is ridiculous that they're making you do this. I said, well, I was told I had to do it. Now, of course, hindsight's 2020. I absolutely could have said to staff, you do this. This is what I want. Please make it happen. But I didn't know any better.
Could you
charges like what every committee at National PTA has to write a plan of work, and it's based on charges that you give them, like goals for the committee for the 3 years. And 3 years is different than ever before. Don't forget, nobody else had done 3 years. And it was the most frustrating thing I've ever done. I don't know how I did it. My daughter helped me, that weekend, but I am so much better now. I can use Canva. I didn't know how to use Canva then. I didn't even barely know how to use PowerPoint. I feel like I almost said, what have I gotten myself into here? Am I going to have to do this for 3 years? But you know something? What I learned from it is, I think when you set your mind to do something that you care about, you can make it happen. I never thought that I would say or tell somebody, I know how to use Canva. Let me show you how to do it. Because I was crying because I couldn't get it. It was just so frustrating. But I taught myself how to do it, and then I just practiced, and now I'm really good at it. So I think when you first kind of in a role, especially a leadership role, you feel confident, but then things happen where it makes you question your confidence. But when you stick to it, and I'm someone I don't give up on things. No advocate gives up. We don't give up, right? We stick to what we believe in, and we just move on, right? If you have an obstacle, you come up with a solution or maybe a compromise, and then you move forward. When we passed that dues increase, I was so happy that I cried because I knew why we didn't pass it. And the idea was people didn't trust National PTA. I mean, you all were in part of New York, so I know what you thought. And when we didn't pass it, I was devastated. The executive director at the time said, we're not going for a dues increase. And I said, well, you're not in charge. I'm the president, and Bill and I will take care of it. We'll have staff help us if we need it. And we took over the entire thing. And what that told me was it needed to be volunteer to volunteer. And I listened to everything that people said. I left no stone unturned for 1 year. Bill and I, literally, it was like nonstop. And I gained the trust of states that National PTA hasn't had the trust of for a very long time. So I'm very proud of that. We did not have a great relationship. I've always had a good relationship with New York, but we did not always have a good relationship with New York PTA and California and Texas and Florida. So those things have been built, and I believe that trust is earned. It's not expected. And that's what I did. I earned the trust of people, and I'm proud of that. And that's how we pass it. So there are some things that's disappointing. There are some states that no matter what, they weren't going to support it, and that's okay. I think that when you persevere through a problem and you come out the other end, that's when you know that what you've done was worth it. Even if you don't win, you've taught yourself that you were dedicated. You did everything you could to make that happen. And I think in PTA, that's a really important thing for us to remember. We're volunteers. It's like 10 full-time jobs at no pay. And so it's not like you're doing it because you're getting a paycheck. You're doing it because you really believe in the mission. You believe in what we're doing. You believe in helping kids. This is why we do the work we do, right? So I believe that, and I always like to see everybody through rose-colored glasses. I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. People have bad days. Things happen. I have bad days too. I yelled at somebody yesterday because I was frustrated with them, and it was wrong. But I can admit when I make a mistake. And I think when you do that and you can admit that you don't have all the answers, but you come up with the solution together with other people, that's how you earn the trust and you build the relationships, and then you're successful.
I think that made a big difference in the passing of the dues, is just your approach.
Yes.
And coming.
Thank you for saying that.
And talking, and again, gaining that trust. And just like you said, and New York is tough. I don't know about the other states, but New York is tough. And, because it wasn't just us trusting you, but it was our members, from New York State, all throughout the state, trusting us to say, this is why we're doing it. Yep. And to have the message be similar, because we are all volunteers.
Yes.
We also have to know that there are some expenses that have to be covered. And it was the way in which that information was shared. And it was really very good. So I think that your approach, again, with the message, you and Bill sharing that message, and just made a big difference. And so it passed. And just like you said.
And I kept hearing that it was so seamless. People were worried, across the units, the region. The word was just seamless. That was so seamless. It went so well.
And it made a big difference from the first time and the second time.
There was a time even before that when Jim was president. We were in Columbus, and that was ugly. So, but I'm glad we were able to pass it, and we're able to provide support to our states. I mean, we want to be able to do as much as we can do as an association to support the work that everybody's doing. It was getting to the point where we couldn't do that because we didn't have a dues increase for 30.
Yvonne, I want to take advantage of you being here too to educate our local leaders that are listening to this podcast. We've talked about the Thrive platform. I want to just have you briefly talk about what does National do for the local leader, the opportunities for, we have the Thrive platform. I know you guys have the national level of the Reflections program. There's all sorts of other programs and grants. You want to speak about that a little bit?
Sure. I love our programs. I think we do a great job. We have a huge platform, public policy priority on digital safety. And you all have been involved in this and you know this, but for the listeners, social media is not going anywhere. It's something that's here to stay. And it's, PTA is about families and parents. And we're not going to tell people what to do, but we want them to have the resources so they can have honest conversations with their families about the internet and digital safety. And so we have the PTA Connected program, which is my favorite. And it's things that people, you don't need any money to do it. We have 5 different programs. All of this is on our website, pta.org/programs. I'm very proud of all the resources we've been able to create for families to use, whether you're deciding if a child is digital device ready, or you're talking about them going onto social media platforms and what to look for. And we just, safeguards. And so we have these different programs that you can do in your PTAs, like the Smart Talk or the 3 Ps, approaching internet safety in a practical, positive, and God, why can't I think of the other? Practical, positive, and I can't think of the other P. I'm drawing a blank.
Words.
But it's all about having honest conversations, talking to your kids. My grandson said, Bubby, that's what he calls me, I want to show you this great reel on Instagram. I said, hold on. How do you even have an Instagram? He's like, oh, I don't. But my mom shows me. And it's this dog. It's called Coco. I don't know if you've seen this. It is the best. I'm addicted now. It's the best. If you are sad and you watch these, you just like, oh my God, this is too cute. It's a dog that talks and it's hilarious. And he wanted to watch every single one so he could show me how funny they were. So that to me reminds me of our 3P program, because that's where a mom is sitting with her child and showing him, a positive thing on a social media platform. That's the kind of thing we want to pass along. We want to, proactive was the other P. I knew it would come to me. So you want to do these conversations ahead of time rather than waiting until a disaster happens, God forbid. PTA has been at the table with all these social media companies. We're the reason there's an Instagram teen account, because we said you need more protections. We're the reason Discord had parents involved at all with any of our conversations, where we bring everyone, the leaders together. And TikTok also, they have asked us they have done focus groups with parents. They want to hear what the families have to say. And so that piece of it has been fantastic. The other program, obviously, you talked about Reflections, which is our premier arts program. It's the greatest thing, and every school should do it. Kindergarten through 12th grade. It's just an awesome program. We also have Healthy Minds, Healthy Body, Healthy Earth. We encourage people to do things outside, whether you're building a food garden. We have a lot of food insecurity in this country. Recently, we took our disaster relief fund and we gave $1,000 worth of grants out to local PTAs to help them offset the cuts to SNAP. So our programs make an impact on families. And I encourage you, if you're a local leader, to go to pta.org/programs and look at all the great things. Kidda, they make these smoke alarms. They have a great program that you can do in your school to teach kids about fire safety. That is important. Kids need to know. I don't know about you, but I had a fire once in my house when my son was 8 and my daughter was my son might have been, 8. My daughter was 2. And I remember him telling us, you got to get down. It used to be the roll thing where you put a blanket over your head. I mean, thank God that the fire was on the porch, but not in the house, but it was still the smoke and everything. And he was telling us what to do. And this is back in the day. That's like 30 something years ago. So now there's, they have a great program and it's all on our website, and our local units, I wish more take advantage of it. We also have programs every year in grants where we give money to local PTAs. It is the easiest thing to apply for. There's STEM, there's math, educating about vaping and the dangers of tobacco. We have everything, and it's all on our website. I could talk about the programs for hours.
Didn't Yonkers get a grant, Robin?
Our council, we got the family engagement grant, and I just came from my local high school. We got the kindness grant as well.
Oh, Create with Kindness.
Yes, Create with Kindness. So, but the council got the family engagement, which was really great. And we met with our district about improving family participation, which is needed throughout the country. National is definitely on the forefront, and thank you very much for that extra cheddar that made it good for us.
Yeah, I mean, our family engagement just redid in 2022. If anyone knows the puzzle pieces, that used to be our family engagement standards, and now it's the 6 tenets of family engagement. That's also on the website, and the new family engagement solutions, where You're working with your school districts to get them to adopt policies on family school partnerships, which is amazing. As a matter of fact, I was a judge the whole time I've been president for the superintendent. There's one superintendent in the country that gets our family engagement outstanding award. The last two, they were both fantastic. I got to go to the ceremony and present them their award. They're so serious about family engagement, and they're a model for other superintendents in this country. We want school boards to adopt a policy on valuing family school partnerships. That's what that's all about.
Love that. Yvonne, we could talk to you forever. I mean, I hate that this is only an hour.
Oh,
So we're going to unfortunately have to wind it down. We have our
Okay.
If this were your final message to PTA leaders and families across the country, what do you want them to hold on to?
Hope. I want families to hold on to hope and stay positive. We are in a very challenging time in our country. We're a nonpartisan organization. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Everybody is struggling for whatever it is. And no one should ever assume what someone else is going through. So having hope, my daughter always tells me that I see everything through rose-colored glasses. Because I'll make a comment about, I'm seeing hope. But it's not that. It's that if you don't have hope, then how are the results going to be positive? How will we change things for every child in this nation? It's holding on to the fact that as PTA, we care about every kid regardless of where they live, and making a difference for each and every single one of those kids. That's the most important thing. We're not always going to always agree on things. That's not reality. But if you have hope that this too shall pass, and seeing families suffer, what's going on with ICE, that's tragic and horrible. It's horrible to fly because TS workers aren't getting paid, right? Look what happened at your airport, right? There's no question that was because the air traffic controllers, they're shorthanded. And so it can't continue this way. And think about history. It always gets better. And you have to think that way. Otherwise, you could really get very depressed and feel very, like it's not worth it. But it is worth it. I always believe it's worth it. It's worth it to put the time in. It's worth it to have the passion. Because even if you're making the difference for one family, for one child, then it was worth it.
Yvonne, thank you so much. I mean, I don't know about you. I needed to hear that today, right?
I'm glad.
Thank you not just for joining us, but for your leadership, your heart, the impact you've given to families and communities everywhere across this country. This conversation is one that will stay with us, I'm sure.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening, if there's one thing to take away from today, it's this. Leadership isn't just about what you do. It's about who you show up as and the lives you touch along the way. Thank you for being here with us.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for all you do for PTA. And for the listeners, thank you for all you do for PTA, because everything you do every single day matters and counts.
Yeah.
So,
Robin, take us out.
This is bite size.